Hello, Gran.
Hello, Natalie.
Okay, so I'm going to be asking you some questions.
Oh dear.
Yeah. That I'd like you to tell me a bit about your life. So let's start with something simple. What is your name and how old are you, Gran, if you dare tell us?
Well, my name now is Doreen Gibson, and I am 84 years old, and I used to be called Doreen Letts before I was married.
Great. Do you not have a middle name, Gran?
No.
No.
I wasn't worth a middle name because years ago my mother had an aunt who hadn't got much money, but she left a little bit of money to her grandchildren, or nephews and nieces, and because my mother was always called Joyce, but she was christened Bessie Joyce.
Yeah.
And she was always called Joyce. No one knew her name was Bessie, but the will, they left it to Bessie Joyce. And there was such a lot of complications, and it was only for a few pounds. And so Mum said, well, if I have any children, I shall never give them an extra name, all the fuss it's been, for this little bit of money to get. That's why I've only got one.
Okay, that's fair enough.
That's one name, that's one thing.
Okay. So, can you tell me a bit about your mum and dad? A bit about their lives, so their jobs, hobbies.
Well, my parents, families, both lived in the village, go back for years and years, almost.
Which village is that, Gran?
Great Houghton. And my mother's father, he lived at Brayfield village, about a couple of miles away, and he married a girl from Great Houghton, and they lived in the village. And he was a very canny sort of man. He was very clever, really.
Oh yeah.
He was not furniture maker. They called him something else. What do they call him?
Chippy?
No, something higher up than just furniture. Anyway, and
Cabinet maker.
Cabinet, well, probably. And he used to work for Rolls Royce.
Mm.
And in Northampton. And anyway, he was a canny sort of man. He was quite clever, and he bought several bits of land hither and thither, and didn't do much with them really. And he finished up in a big, well, got an acre of land and the house had got a stone on it to say it was built in 1600 and something. And he lived there. And his wife died when I was 2 years of age, so I never knew her, obviously. And my father's...
So sorry, this was your dad's dad?
This was Mum's
Mum's dad.
yeah. And she had a brother, and he became a haulage contractor in the village, you know, used to drive all over Europe, the lorries did. And my father's history, I'm going to tell you because I always think it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Because my father's there's a house which they now call the manor house in the village, but it used to be a farmhouse, the one on the green there.
Yeah.
That one. And they were farmers and they lived there, and their name was Smith. And I don't know how they came about, but my father's grandfather started courting the daughter of the house, and he lived at Urchester. And I don't know whether he was a farmer or he worked for a farmer, I'm not sure. But he used to walk every week, every Saturday, from Urchester to Northampton Cattle Market with cattle.
Wow.
Then...
How far is that, do you think?
Well, a long way.
Long
about
way,
10
isn't it?
miles
At
or
least
so.
10 miles, yeah.
And then he used to take the cattle to the farm, my great-grandmother's farm, and by the way, her name was Natalie.
Huh!
I always thought Natalie was a modern
Did
name.
Mum know that when she named me?
No, no. And he used to park the cattle there and do a spot of courting, presumably, and then he went, take the cattle back to Urchester. That's how that little romance started.
Ah.
And anyway, they eventually got married, and the family sort of grew up from there. And he well, this grandfather, great-grandfather, whatever he was going to retire. He wanted to retire, so he gave the farm to this my great-grandfather.
Right.
And so he moved to the village to do the farm.
To
there.
Great Hayton?
Yes, and his name was Smith. And they had a lot of land all the way up the village, right out the village, at the top as you go up to Hardingstone, or where the playing fields are now. And the farm was called Lime Farm, one of that they lived in, and the estate's called Lime Farm Way. But and so they lived there, and missing quite a bit out. I think that was a romantic bit.
Mm.
And when one of his sons was going to get married to this is where your mum's clock comes from, this side of the family, and he wanted to marry this girl, and his sisters didn't think she was good enough for their brother John because he was so special.
You're right.
And so when the rector came in his little donkey cart from town to take the service in church, they stopped him at the church gate and they said, "We don't want you to publish the banns of marriage of our Johnny." So they said, "Why is that, my dear?" So he said, "Because she's not good enough for our Johnny." So they said, "That's not any excuse for you to stop them getting married." So they eventually got married, and with it she bought that clock when she got married.
Mm.
As part of her family, what have you. So there's a bit of
Like a dowry kind of thing?
Yeah.
Ah.
So that's where...
But with that clock, there's something interesting, isn't it? Because the bottom, it's short, isn't it?
Yes, because the eventually it passed down the family, and when it went into this other family, the part of the Smith family, when they took it into the house, because it was a little low-ceilinged cottage, and they couldn't get it in, so they had to cut the bottom off. And so that's what happened to that. And also it took a hole as well, so it sunk down. And I was a child, and every Sunday we used to go to church Sunday evening and go up there to see this aunt and uncle, you see. And my dad always used to wind the clock up.
Ah.
And then when he died, the clock went to Dad,
Yeah.
who gave it to your mum, to Lynn,
Yeah.
because every Sunday she used to go up to their house to help wind the clock,
Oh.
because she was only a little toddler. And behind the clock they used to store this big Union Jack. And Dad used to say, "Now when you start school we're going to stand on the green and wave this flag." Because you're going to school. At the time got nipped, so I said, "You won't wave the flag, will you, when I go to school?" Which I didn't. And so that's why your mum's had the clock.
Right.
Because she always used to wind the clock.
Oh, I
Wind it
see.
there to pull the chains and
Yeah.
all that sort of thing. So that's what an old family heirloom, really.
So what was your dad's name, Gran?
Now his name was Letts.
It was Cyril Letts, is that
Yeah,
it?
Cyril George Letts.
Right.
He was, and he came from Urchester, the Urchester side of the family, and he moved to the farm to work for his father, they kept in the family. And he, I don't know how old he was. He was probably about 18 or 16 or 18 when he moved into the village, and had his eye on my mother.
Oh.
And she wanted to go out. They wanted to go out. He wanted to take her out to the pictures. But they said, no, she's not going to go with him because he's not good enough for her.
Huh.
They're very stuck up
Yeah, sound like it.
They said, it's not good enough. You know, you want someone better than him. And so Tom, Mum's brother, used to pretend to take her to the pictures Saturday nights. Used to go to town on the bus. He'd go into town and then hand her over to Dad. And they did a spot recording. And that's how, because the farm that he was left, the bit that he had, was ever so poor. But to be truthful, my grandfather was a bit of a boozer. And he used to drink a lot of the money away and lived quite poorly. And he hadn't got a lot. I mean, who was nicer in the world than Grandad?
Yeah.
He was the loveliest man in the world. And so he was eventually invited home for tea. And so Mum bought him a pair of shoes, new shoes, so he got some new shoes to go in. I remember saying that. I mean, nobody in the world was a nicer person than Dad, was there?
Yeah, totally. He was the
But
nicest person.
Mum's parents thought that was a little bit higher up the scale.
Was that what it was like, just in general? Was people a lot more judgmental of class,
I don't know,
you know,
really.
at that time? Did you feel like there was more of a class structure?
Well, I don't know, but you see, those days, nobody... yeah, he was a cabinet maker, that was it. And those days, working class, which we were, didn't get a chance for education. But I mean, had he had a chance for education, he'd have gone far, because he was a very, very clever man.
So can you tell me more about your dad? Like, what were his hobbies? What was his job? Like,
My dad?
Yeah, tell me about him. And
what he loved more in the world was his garden. He loved his garden. And he had 2 small greenhouses. He loved his greenhouses. And the greenhouse was in the garden near ours. And when he used to come home from work, he used to go straight into the greenhouse, put the light on. Grandad used to say, your dad's home, he said, he never goes in and sees your mum first. He always goes and sees his plants first. And he used to go in to see if everything was surviving. And no, he loved, and he was lovely with the children. You know, he loved children. And he loved anything mechanical, because you see, he was brought up on the farm. And then when he got married, he left the farm and went to work at the garage at Yardley Hastings, and became a mechanic. And but he loved nature, and he loved the garden. He loved his garden more than anything. And he loved us children. He was so good with children.
yeah,
He was a lovely man. And
he grew lots of things in his greenhouse.
yes, all sorts of rare things that people didn't really grow a lot of.
What did he grow?
Well, I mean, they do now, but I mean, they used to grow melons and peaches and
Wow,
all sorts of things, and grapes and
wow.
everything, you know. But he loved it, and I mean, when he used to go on holiday, they used to go on holiday, they said, now, Dad and me used to go to the greenhouse, and that one wants watering, that plant wants watering twice a day, that one once a day, now that one perhaps only once or twice a week, and every Frank said, wait till they're gone, she said, we just have a good soak when they come back. Because you could, everything was so special, you know what I mean? 'Cause
Didn't he like dig down to get water and from underground?
Yes, well, of course, when I was growing up, we had a drought, and there was no water in the village, no tap water, no sewer. And my grandfather, the one I was telling you about, Charlie Robinson, his one ambition was to get the sewer and the water brought to the village because he was on the parish council. And the man that lived down what was the prep school, down there, lived down there, and they was always going hammer and tongs. And he says, like this Robinson, he said, if you had water and sewer in this village, I couldn't afford to live here.
Ah.
It didn't matter about people having to dig holes and bury their poo, did it? But that's how they were, you see.
Wow.
And as I say, he was. Who was I talking about now? Dad or Pap?
Well, you were talking about Dad, cause, your dad, because I was asking about, because I remember him, like, didn't he dig down in his greenhouse to get water
well,
or
we
something?
had a drought, and the only water you got were for the pumps in the village. And you know where our front garden is? Just outside the front garden, on the wall there, by the street light, there used to be a village pump.
Ah.
People used to make a way to get a bucket of water. And so the water dried up virtually. So he knew, I don't know how he knew, but there's an underground stream that runs from out the top of the village. I reckon it's of Roman origin, runs through the village, down under our ground, and in the field in front, because otherwise floods, and down to the houses down the bottom used to flood, and all that. And so he dug down, and found water. We didn't have to tell anybody, it was a secret. And and Gran used to put things in a bucket and lower them down to keep them cool, butter or whatever, what to keep fresh. And Grandad was coming over for tea for the first day. I was taking him home. So it was ever such a hot day. It was one of those hot summers. Mum said we have something in jelly, you see, because she did them days. And so she made this jelly. It was red one. She had it tangled down in there about 24 hours and it still wouldn't set. She said, you'll have to drink the damn stuff, she said. But yes, he did that well. And
So great granddad's hobbies were he was a mechanic and he loved his garden.
He loved his garden.
And I always remember him being very good with us great grandchildren.
Yes,
we adored him.
Yeah.
What about great gran? What was her hobbies and what was her job?
Well, she when she left school, because we all left school at 14 those days, and she worked in town at what's called the Pinafore factory. And she worked there till they got married. And then by that time her mother was dying of cancer. She got breast cancer. And and there was her dad and her brother, and he was actually her cousin by birth, but Fred brought up as a brother because his mother died just after he was born during that terrible flu epidemic after the First World War. And so she used to have to look after them, cook and clean for them. And then she had me. About 18 months after she was married, I come trotting along. And so she didn't have any hobbies as such as that, but she used to do a lot of knitting and sewing,
Yeah.
And
is that great grand died of breast cancer, didn't she?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. My grandmother.
Yeah.
Yeah, she died of.
But I thought your mum.
She had breast cancer.
Breast cancer as well.
And Dad's mother had breast cancer.
Right.
So I keep checking.
Blimey, we better watch out.
But you see, if you have it in later life, it's not hereditary. It's just But her mother was quite a young woman because I was 2 when she died. And I tell you, this man that my grandfather was always arguing with, and he didn't want water in the village, and because he was rich by our standards, and there was nothing to cure for pain, for cancer or anything, and the doctor used to say, keep giving her plenty of brandy, sort of keep her intoxicated.
Yeah.
And it was the day before she died, she said to my grandfather, there's something I've always wanted to do. So he said, what's that? He said, I've always wanted to try champagne. He said, well, you should have some. So he went down to the big house, told him that, and said, could you give her a glass of champagne? He said, Robinson, I'll give you a bottle of champagne. Because he always called him Robinson, not Mr. Robinson or Charles. And he gave, and she just put it to her lips that once, because she said, I mean, she could only been only in her 20s. But, so of course I didn't know her. But so Mum,
She was in her 20s when she died.
I suppose so.
Gosh.
No, well, no,
No,
older than that,
no.
because I was born, yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
probably about 40, 30,
Right.
whatever. But, so of course I didn't know anything about her, really.
Okay, so how about your brother? You just had one brother.
One brother, yes.
Yeah, Alan. Do you want to tell us about Alan?
Yes, he was mechanically minded all the time, a real mechanic man. Anything, he used to take everything apart and put everything together again. And they used to have a Meccano set, you know, it used to be my dad's Meccano set. And all over the house there were machinery he'd made and stuff working things and lorries and things that he'd built, and it was mechanically minded.
Were you friends with Alan?
Oh,
Do you have a good relationship with him?
Yeah. But we were brother and sister, so we hadn't got that closer thing as you do as if you were both the same sex, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But we all got on well together.
So where did you go for your summer holidays?
Well, of course the war was on, and so my grandparents, they got the farm at Newton Blossom. They moved from Great Houghton and bought a better farm, a really good farm, which did arable and animals and everything. And they got, it was a lovely big farm. And I've got a cousin there, and 3 cousins there, aunt and uncle, my father's brother, and his wife, and their 3 boys. And we all grew up together. And of course the war was on then, because you couldn't get a lot of stuff. And everything was zoned. If something was made in an area, it was only sold in that area. You couldn't buy it up the other end of the country because of taking it up. And it was the same with cereal. Well, I've never been one for cereals. And I don't know which cereal it was, because it was made at Wellingborough, still is. And so when I used to go over, I used to have to take these cereals. And we always used to go fishing with these cousins. And I always used to have to get fishing hooks for them. My mum used to get them. And my mum used to put me on the bus at the bottom of the lane in charge of the conductress. And my aunt and my 3 cousins would be waiting for me at Turvey. And the first thing is, have you brought us any fishing hooks? And so I had the most fantastic holidays. Every holiday, except Christmas. I had Christmas at home, but we all used to go over for a day there, you know, as a family. But I had fantastic holidays there. And it was an isolated farm, a long walk to anywhere. And the river Ouse went along the bottom of the farm. And they had the other uncle had built a boat, and they said, I wouldn't dare let my own children go out on the boat and go fishing. Just catch fish, and we used to take them home, and Gran used to cook them for us. Dad used to say, it's like eating fried mud. But, yeah, I had fantastic holidays there.
Were you a bit of a tomboy then,
Yeah.
Gran?
Yeah, I was very much a tomboy. But I used to help. thought, with the harvest and haymaking. And used to, when they'd loaded the trailers up with the hay or the straw, us kids used to sit on the top and have them ride back down to the farm. It was quite a hilly farm. And they got milk in, and they used to take the milk down. It was a gated road down to the, not a main road, but it was a slightly main road. And they got this old, I forget what car, old-fashioned, ever so old car, hadn't got a roof or anything. And they used to put the milk churns in there and drop the milk in and drive it down to the bottom, you know, take it down. And us kids used to go down for rides as well.
I guess, were they the only people in the family that had a car, or?
Yeah, but
It was
that
quite
wasn't-
rare, was
You
it?
couldn't take it out the farm.
Oh, okay,
it
just a
wasn't
farm
suitable
vehicle.
for. But yes, my grandfather did have a car, and he used to. I've got a cousin Dennis who's only 10 days difference in our birth, and he used to call me Dean, my grandfather did, and him Pemp. Don't know why, but he did. And he used to say, right, now then you two, would you like to come to Bedford Market with me, or would you like to go somewhere? Well, he only took us, so we used to get out the car to open the gate so he didn't have to get out. I realised that later. And and it used to stop at every other pub on the way there and on the way back. And he used to buy us a bottle of pop and a wagon wheel. I never liked wagon wheels.
So, you mentioned the war. How old were you when the war started?
I think I
World
was
War
about
Two.
7.
What's your first memories?
Well, opposite the school, but the school was on the main road at Little Houghton, and opposite the school was a farmyard and farm buildings, and the army camped out in there, and Little Houghton were very posh. They've got sewer and water, which we haven't got, and the soldiers used to come across and use their toilets and use their water, and used to see them. And then when the Americans come, we used to sit on the playground wall and say, "Oh, you got any gum, chum?" As they drove by, and then they used to give us some sweets or something. But I don't remember a great deal about it. You know, because I'd grown up with it, I took it as normal.
It's just normal, yeah.
But of course, a lot of the children were evacuated into our school and our village. And,
So because your village is in the country,
yeah, we were safe.
people from cities,
Yeah.
kids from cities came to you?
Yeah, they came down.
Did you befriend them, or what? Like, how was it with those kids?
Yeah, well, I had a special friend, Jean Hughes, same age as me. She was a lovely girl. And I was to call for on the way to school. We used to have to walk across the fields. From the age of 3, when I started school, I used to walk from Great Houghton to Little Houghton, a mile, there, come back at lunchtime, go back and back. That's why I'm so short. It wore my legs out. And I used to go and call for Jean. We used to walk to school together. And one day I was up the willows walking across the field, top of the hill, and we could see this Air Force man in the field walking towards us, hurrying, you know. And she suddenly shrieked, said, "It's my dad, it's my dad!" And she ran. I could never forget, she ran across the field and straight into his arms. And he'd got some leave and he'd come. But the sad thing was, and it happened a lot of times, I think, the people that they were billeted on used them as servants. She wasn't allowed to come out and play, like the children were. She had to stop and help because her daughter, looks like a turn, got back's gone off, and her daughter got a baby, and she used to have to stop and help help cleaning the house and help with the washing, and she was never allowed out to play. But we were ever such good friends, and she had a sister who was billeted to someone at Little Houghton, Shirley, and the family that she was billeted to desperately wanted children, couldn't have any. And of course they had Shirley and they had her as their own. Then after the war, Shirley's Jean's mum had her back as soon as she was 14, so she could go to work and earn money for her. Well, this is what they said. But Shirley was that bit younger, and they didn't want her back, and she never ever did go back.
Oh, so that family
And
adopted her.
they virtually adopted her, and Julie said to me, not a while ago, when she was school nurse, going round the schools and that, and she said she met this girl, this nurse, her name was, she met this teacher, Shirley, I forget her other name now, was Shirley Hughes, and she was evacuated, and it was her, and she'd gone on to be a teacher, and she lived there, and of course they absolutely idolised her, it was just what they wanted, so that worked out nice for her. But and also in the village was a cousin of Mum's, and they had this evacuee boy, and I don't know why, because I never played with him, had nothing to do with him, but I remembered his name, Alan Unfang.
Wow.
I think it was his name that did it, you see.
Yeah.
And after the war finished, somebody knocked on the door, and this young man stood there. So he said, I don't know whether you remember this, I used to be evacuated here to Mrs. Robinson. So he said, I'm Alan Unfang. I've never forgotten it, because Mum said, come on in, you know. But I've never forgotten it. I think it was his name, because I can't remember anything about him. I never played with him or anything. But yes, Alan Unfang. So I don't know why.
So what was it like, how old were you during those war years? You would have been between
all
7...
the time I was growing up, 14,
Wow.
7, 8, 9. I think it was about 5 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, 4 or
So,
5 years.
yeah, so when I